All right, everyone. Trump has vetoed a resolution that passed through the House and Senate to dissociate the United States from support with the Saudi coalition that's currently attacking everything that moves over in Yemen. This is a humanitarian disaster and would be recognized as such on a grand scale if anybody bothered to talk about it. But really, other than the initial incursions cross-border by the Houthi, the government of Yemen, the Saudi coalition there, you haven't really heard it talked about that much, and so most people don't know that tens of thousands of people have died of cholera over there in a significant epidemic of the same. People don't realize that the nation of Yemen has been fundamentally ripped apart by this, and they don't really understand. Here's one thing I will say in response to this. I oppose Trump's veto. I do think that we should dissociate from actions in Yemen. But it is a little bit funny to see the hypocrisy of people that sort of ignore like Syria or Afghanistan or something where we have a physical presence, we conduct physical operations. And Yemen, where it's mostly logistic, like our strikes there are supposedly limited to just terrorists. Now, of course, that happens to mean the people that the Saudis are attacking. The hope is that it's not like in other theaters where 3/4 of the casualties are civilians. That was a big report that came out years ago under the Obama admin. And of course, Trump has, and this is also regrettable, tried to muzzle reports on the same of our drone program. That 3/4 roughly of all of those killed by U.S. drone strikes were civilians, is not militants, not fighting age militants or anything like that, not fanatics, but women and children and stuff. It may not have helped that we kept attacking orphanages and hospitals so much over in Afghanistan at the time, but that's an unpopular opinion. It's like, kill the children, save the food, I suppose. Here's the thing. I think Trump's in the wrong here. The hypocrisy on both sides is appalling, number one, but to see Congress try to grandstand, oh my God, Congress needs to take back power over war and stuff like that. It's like, well, after successive administrations of you bending over and sucking off any executive that wanted to attack things at the time, all of a sudden now it's a problem under Trump. Iraq gets ruined, Afghanistan, Syria, Egypt almost, Libya certainly, those were all fine. The executive branch can do what it wants. All of a sudden now it's a problem under Trump. And this is our most limited involvement. What about Syria and Afghanistan, where Congress literally stands in the way of Trump's initial attempt to get us out of those theaters? I don't consider Trump to be a warmonger. He hasn't started any major conflicts. He's just perpetuating, in a more limited scale, thankfully, the conflicts we've already been involved in, but that doesn't mean I suddenly become pro-Saudi coalition. No, the Saudi coalition, let them fight their own battles. We already give them all sorts of weapons and shit. They already have nukes on short order from Pakistan. Look, if their coalition is incapable of defeating a handful of largely untrained militants in a country the size of Yemen, and they still get their shit kicked in every other time there's a combat engagement, what does that say about the allies that we've chosen within the region? Maybe it's not a good idea to be on their team. Maybe they're, not going to be able to. I mean, people are like, well, the Saudis are allies and stuff. Like, there have been hit pieces in the media. Well, Trump is endangering our relationship with the Saudis. But then at the same time, they're going to jump right on board with this and condemn him for, vetoing this resolution, which is like, be consistent. Now, I'm no hypocrite. I've been, generally against any foreign interventionism throughout time. I think there's very limited theaters throughout the world where we're actually doing good. And in cases where we should have gotten involved, like we could have saved hundreds of thousands of people in Darfur years ago and we refused to do anything. Back in the days of like the Rwandan genocide or something, not enough was done. I think one of the few places that we're, making overtures that make sense is in Korea. We're negotiating from a position of strength, but we're trying to secure peace at the same time. Whereas now here in Yemen, is peace really in sight? The military conduct that's going on, the stuff that the Saudis are doing, do we expect that long term it's going to lead to peace, or is it just going to breed more sectarian conflict? The problem is that by our involvement, we are antagonizing other groups of people who have similar sectarian ideas, specifically Shia mentality, around the world. Now, obviously, we're already antagonistic towards Iran and towards Syria and stuff, but that doesn't always have to be the way that we do business. It's really not an either-or. I think one of the main failures of U.S. policy over the last roughly 70 years has been to look at the world in terms of black and white, to the point at which we don't think that there's any way to expand a coalition beyond the black and white framework that we ourselves have envisioned. by thinking that it's impossible to do so, it actually prevents us from doing so. We could bring peace to other regions. We could be expanding westernization into places where it's currently absent, but instead we just end up antagonizing people. And I think that that's sad. I think that it's the wrong thing to do. I think it also feeds into the new Cold War rhetoric that we're seeing. And really, this is about the grand chessboard. The Shia world roughly aligned with the Russians, with China, with the Eastern Bloc sort of, non-westernized diaspora, and then you have basically the United States, NATO as its core, and some of those Western alliances, along with Eastern Asian countries, Latin America, really forming the other side, so-called. You have a nation like Yemen, it leads more towards the former. It leads more towards, the Russians, the Shia world, being as it is with the Houthi rebels. And it's like, fucking, this conflict is killing, huge numbers of civilians, not exactly a pretty thing. And now by being involved, even if it's in a non-military scenario, mostly giving logistics, and I think we were refueling their planes for a while, I think we stopped that. Even then, they're going to say, well, America the Great Satan is ruining another country. And it makes for potent propaganda, at least in those other states. Sometimes it pays to stay back, let things sort themselves out, and be more gentle and offer like humanitarian support. Sometimes that makes you, at the very least, optically it's a win for you. Even if you see a country follow a regime that's not really happy towards you or something, okay, well, was the former regime really like gung-ho for the United States? And is Saudi Arabia really an ally of the United States at all? The only interests that I care about in the world fundamentally are the interests of the United States because I live in the United States. I don't really care about who wins, in modern warfare there's never a winner anyway, between a bunch of Houthi rebels and the Saudi military. I really don't care. I really don't care who's attacking who. That's their struggle. It has nothing to do with me. I don't want to see U.S. troops put in danger for no reason. U.S. assets deployed for no reason. And really us getting diplomatically entangled in another theater that we don't really need to be involved in. What we should be doing is pressuring the Saudis to withdraw. We should be pressuring the Saudi Arabians to get to the fucking table and conduct some diplomacy. And there's not exactly... Look how rich Saudi Arabia is and all the toys that it plays with, and it can't deal with a fucking few Houthi rebels. Even the fact that it's crippled the infrastructure of Yemen so badly that half the people are sick all the time, one of the greatest humanitarian disasters of this decade, and nobody even fucking knows it's going on. So yeah, I oppose Trump on this. And there's no way to spin it in favor of Trump, to be clear as well. There are some people who are like, well, yeah, but I trust Trump to deal with it. Okay, I trust Trump way more than Obama or Bush as far as geostrategy goes. Now, let's make that clear. Far more. That still doesn't mean I'm pro-war. And it doesn't matter if we're just giving logistic support or something. We used to give logistic support to Saddam Hussein when he was gassing the Iranians, actually. You remember that? I think that was in the 1970s. Pentagon later declassifies, yeah, we were giving him all sorts of images and we're telling him where the enemy was. Yeah, he only gassed a few tens of thousands of people. That was when he actually had a lot of WMDs, not when we decided to invade because he stopped playing nice and started thinking about the possibility of building his own oil coalition or something. It was basically OPEC probably wanted him gone more than the United States did. We just decided that it was a good way to test out our next generation of military toys. It's fun to test military toys. Why don't we do it on people that actually deserve it and not join a coalition of the insane, really, which is inflaming the entire Arabian Peninsula? Seems like a bad decision to me strategically. That's about all. Peace out.